What's up guys, this is Anime Crossover. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Went to the Marvel Universe Part 11. And if you did enjoy the video, consider a like. And if you know much like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for my crossover news. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 12. The End of the Island Yamata's Chasm Monastery. Patronus, Lara, and Captain America found a tunnel after scaling the cliff wall with some craggy areas, crawling on the floor to the other side to avoid alerting any foes ahead. When the trio reached the other side of the tunnel, they encountered the opposing trio of Matthias, Whitman, and a terrified Sam. When Patronus got a better look, he wondered, did they change her clothes? Sam was dressed in a white ceremonial gown with a flower halo around her head. What exactly are they going to do with her? Captain America saw that the novice hero was ready to act to save Sam and quickly stopped him. "Look over there," the Avenger said, pointing to the monastery's bridge. "If we go now, they'll alert the others." Patronus simply nodded, tuning out Cap's comments not out of disrespect, but out of surprise. Lara was also marveling at the two samurai warriors, who were dressed and armed differently. One of them was dressed like an archer, with a bow on its back, and the other as an infantryman, with a sword on its belt. "Okay. But Whitman is mine," Patronus grumbled. Lara chose to ignore in favor of observing Sam as she and the others, including Whitman, approached the bridge with caution. "Who are these people?" Whitman inquired, a little uneasily. Matthias responded, groaning as he clutched Sam tight. "They guard the monastery, waiting for their new queen to be introduced by the one who brought her back to us." "Ah, of course, Whitman replied, his pride shining through. "I've met these archaic tribes before," he exhaled to calm himself. "Let's go get some awards, James." Lara and the others watched as the doctor revealed himself to the Stormguard, who were now on alert. What exactly is he doing? Being an idiot, Patronus replied flatly. Whitman addressed himself to the Stormguard, saying, "My name is Dr. James Whitman. I come in peace. I bring you your new queen." He expected Matthias to disclose Sam, but neither of them did as they huddled behind a boulder, frightening him. "Your queen." His terror increased as the two Stormguard neared. "What does it say in Japanese? Your Joe." The Stormguard drew their weapons and began murdering him while Matthias carried Sam across the bridge. As Lara yelled out, the group jumped down from their hiding place. "Sam!" "Lara!" A tremendous blast of wind blew the chasing Stormguard off the bridge, along with the bridge itself. "Sam! Lara!" Matthias yanked on Sam's arm, irritated. "Come on!" Patronus longed to leap over the gap and slam Matthias to the ground, but the wind was too strong for any of them. Lara, on the other hand, observed two more Stormguard close on a second cliff near the monastery's entrance and saw them enter via a window. "Following me." "Wait!" Patronus exclaimed as Lara obeyed. He waited for the wind to die down. "Now!" Captain America and Patronus followed Lara as she fired a rope arrow and traversed the zipline to the opposite side of the rugged cliffside before climbing through the window and entering the monastery. "Formation?" "Formation," Captain replied, taking the rear with Lara between him and Patronus, who took the front. As an inhuman howl resonated down the corridor, they walked down it and turned right. What exactly was that? His response came in the form of more Stormguards walking into the room ahead of them, speaking like employees on a typical weekday. "The Stormguard," mused Lara loudly enough for the heroes to hear. "Are they still guarding their queen after all these years? Shall we introduce them to the world of pain?" Patronus inquired, as though a child. Captain gave him a sign of approval. "Let's," he said as Lara drew her shotgun and cocked it with a single hand motion. The cocking drew the Stormguard, who grabbed their weapons and charged. Patronus met their charge by grabbing the first Stormguard and used him as a shield to plow through the rest of them, knocking them down before tossing the Stormguard in his grip against a wall. When Captain saw the Stormguard recover, he threw his shield towards the other Stormguard brandishing a katana, but the cursed samurai dived beneath the missile. Undaunted, the Avenger brushed Lara aside before charging at his chosen Stormguard, tackling it to the ground and removing the katana from its grip. Meanwhile, Lara immediately backstepped, ducked, and flipped acrobatically between the remaining two Stormguard as they swung their naganatas, and after landing on the ground, she quickly unleashed 4 bullets from her shotgun. She fired 2 more shots to ensure they were down. The captain and the Stormguard alternated strikes and counterattacks, neither giving the other an inch. The Avenger dodged an elbow strike and tackled the samurai again before quickly wrapping his legs around the Stormguard's neck and stretching out its arm. After glancing at the grapple move, Patronus calmly blocked his Stormguard's assaults before slashing its throat and tendon areas with his pivot blade. The captain's body twerked as a loud snap echoed in the chamber, indicating that the Stormguard had been killed. Its neck had been severed. After lighting fire to boxes and rubble, the group ducked through a short passage into a massive area filled with nothing but Stormguard. After viewing the mass of unknowing Stormguard, Lara and Patronus cursed. "Don't make a sound, everyone." "Agreed," Captain said as he and the others squatted behind the structure that concealed them from the Stormguard, moved up the steps, crossed a beam to the other staircase, and scaled across an edge. While scaling, the group observed the gigantic Stormguard in the center of the room while two smaller Stormguard were scrutinizing its armor for apparent flaws. Was this the next Stormguard leader after the general's death? That was on Patronus' mind until he noticed Lara jump to the window but inadvertently knocked over a skull, drawing the Stormguard's attention. As he and Captain entered the window after Lara, the Uzumaki ninja dropped 3 smoke bombs in the center to obstruct their view. To avoid a blazing arrow, the Avenger tilted his head. "Run!" he exclaimed as more arrows flew at them, triggering an explosion. A chain of explosions followed the trio down the hall until they tumbled down a steep hill with a few abrupt curves and landed at the bottom. "Oh!" Lara moaned as a hand was placed in front of her. She accepted it as Patronus assisted her in standing. "Thanks." Patronus replied before extending his pivot blade. "Anytime. Incoming." 3 Stormguard had leapt from the walls ahead and charged at them, to which they had reacted just as quickly. As Captain America bashed his shield on the Stormguard's head, Patronus parried a Stormguard's katana, severing it due to the adamantine blade. When it hit the ground, the Avenger jumped on top of it and beheaded the head before noticing the second Stormguard. Captain hunched his back as Patronus rolled over him and kicked the Stormguard's katana away, his instincts blaring. Lara stood there watching Patronus cut the Stormguard's throat with his golden slender wrist blade before firing several shots from her silencer into the Stormguard's chest and head. After the bodies were taken care of and hidden, the trio dashed to the end of the corridor, where there was an ancient door. Patronus, not Lara, opened it with brute power as he punched the door down. After then, a huge gust of wind greeted them, and they quickly resumed their formation while trying to ignore the weather. The trio heard the Endurance survivors on the radio as they scaled a wall to reach another tunnel. "Jonah, Grim, incoming," said Roth. Following the old guy, Reyes said, "Shoot them down with everything you've got." "I got this side. Call out targets," yelled Jonah as gunshots pierced the link. Lara exchanged eyes with the 2 heroes as they all nodded to hurry to save Sam. They reached it to the other side, where a bridge loomed before them, slowly being torn apart by the continual breath of wind. The bridge abruptly slanted forward, lowering the foursome on a natural platform below as they warily marched against the wind. Patronus was employed once more to break Lara's fall while Captain rolled on the ground. "This is getting annoying," grumbled the disguised ninja as he and Lara rose up. Bababom, bababom. The trio's attention was drawn to the drum-like sound as hordes of Stormguard prepared for battle and charged at them. Patronus and Lara utilized their senses to survey the 2 plateaus that served as their battleground as they noticed that the samurai's commander was ahead of them in the far north. "Stalker of the Stormguard. All right, you cretins, let's see what you've got," Lara mocked as she drew her revolver. Patronus had already counterattacked by deftly tossing 10 exploding kunai at the Stormguard on the higher plateau, causing them to scatter and be blasted away seconds later. As the Croft adventurer followed Captain, who had cleared a passage of Stormguard, Lara dived under an arrow and returned fire at the Stormguard archer. Seeing a Stormguard on a roof that was hidden from the wandering eyes of Lara and Captain, Patronus leapt to the far roof and pounced on the shocked Stormguard before stabbing its neck with his right hidden blade. Except for Kurama and Ashura, Naruto had just completed an air assassination. As additional archers came out of the monastery doors and formed 2 columns, the Stormguard stalker lifted its big spiked kanabo with a thunderous roar, observing his troops being torn apart and beaten by the intruders. The stalker brought its kanabo down after seeing them knock their aflame arrows. Patronus spun around, his senses heightened, and noticed the hailing arrows, as well as the distracted Lara and Captain America. "Guys, get down," Naruto said before using a shunshine to arrive at their location, in front of them. "We have to retreat," Lara exclaimed as she took a step back. Captain made a shaky motion with his head. "There's not enough time." "No choice," Naruto said before clapping his fists together. "Futon, Kazaheki," says Futon. When a swirling mass of wind circled around the foreigners and severed numerous arrows that endangered them, the storm guards' actions came to a halt. Their leader peered at the dispersing spherical mass, exposing the foreigners to be unscathed by their arrows. The stalker shouted loudly before delivering orders in Japanese, raising its cannonbow and shooting directly at the hooded one, and Patronus and Lara are aware of what he stated. Capture the one responsible for our queen. The storm guard sentries, archers, and swordsmen raised their weapons as they either aimed at Patronus or charged with their weapons in the case of the swordsmen and spearmen. I'll handle them. You two get up there, Patronus said, much to their astonishment, particularly Lara. She snatched his arm. Are you crazy? You can't fight the rest of them on your own. It's suicide. Lucky for me, I'm not asking for your permission, Patronus replied simply before grabbing and tossing both Lara and Captain to the higher plateau just as the storm guard crossed to him over a gigantic stone pillar. Let's go play. Patronus snatched an enemy's blade with his palm before plunging it into the former owner as it tumbled backwards from instant death for the time being. As Naruto developed his signature technique in his palm, he bobbed and weaved from a naginata before destroying it with a handknife. Rasengan. Patronus hurled his chakra sphere into a swarm of storm guard, destroying them and sending their fragmented remains flying off the plateau. He turned around and swiftly inhaled and exhaled several wind chakra cylindrical projectiles. Futon. Shinkugyoku. The wind element's cutting force ripped apart the storm guard, as Patronus' pivot blade and hidden blade chopped them down. Meanwhile, on the second plateau, Lara sought cover behind a house before firing her machine gun at the sentries and archers in the towers, while Captain America used his shield to deflect several naginata and katana strikes from 4 storm guards. After dispatching the long-range fighters, Lara assisted Captain by firing 2 shots from her shotgun at the naginata-wielding storm guard. The katana-wielding storm guard were distracted by Lara, enabling Captain an opportunity to steal a naginata and cut the 4 storm guard through their upper torsos. Lara slipped under an arrow, swapped her shotgun for her compound bow, and knocked and launched an arrow directly at the storm guard archer. As they made their way towards the shrine ahead, the couple could hear Patronus' joyful laughing accompanied by a pleasant breeze of wind, but debris obstructed their path between the towers. More storm guard approached, swinging their weapons, whether katana, naginata, or shield, but they remained undeterred. While Captain fought the others in weapons warfare, Lara stood back and turned to her machine gun, emptying a magazine into the storm guard. The Avenger rolled under a storm guard's katana, which had become entangled in another, before cleaving their legs with his vibranium-made shield. Lara launched a rope arrow and used her ascender to drag the debris out after they were secured. The pair dashed between the towers until they were stopped in front of the monastery doors by the looming presence. Patronus sprang to the higher platform, where he spotted Lara and Captain hanging onto the ground with the axe and shield, respectively. The storm guard stalker, on the other hand, noticed Patronus and yelled at him as the leader charged at him before being swept away by a powerful wind gust over Lara and Captain. TTIIPMX TTIIPMX TTIIPM The Sacred Hall in the Chasm Shrine. Yamatai in the mountains. Patronus stared at Lara, who had the "tell me everything" look, after making it inside and taking a few breathers. Wind is one of the capabilities I can use. Aerokinesis is one of the most useful powers in the world, and I speak from experience, Captain pondered as Patronus chuckled slightly. Lara continued to stare at him, stung by the cloaked hero's secret powers, even though she knew he undoubtedly had a purpose for doing so. In reality, she was relieved that he used his skills immediately and that Grimm's time had been saved. She was conflicted, though, by the storm guard's reaction to his powers. They'll most likely be focused on murdering Patronus because he's the most dangerous threat to their queen. When Patronus yelled out her name, the archer blinked. "You good to go?" he inquired, snapping his fingers. Lara gave a nod. "Let's keep going," she said as she and the other heroes made their way to the middle shrine area, where there was a dangling obstacle. "Great, now we've got to do another puzzle or something. Or we can do..." Patronus paused before stepping in front of the other side's doors and punching through them. "This," he said, as a surprised Lara looked at him and Captain said, "I knew it. Come on in, you two." Lara grasped his arm, her glare returning tenfold. "When we're done here, you're going to tell me everything about yourself." "You sure about that?" Patronus asked, looking at her and himself in the elevator. "Everything, you say?" He grinned before being slapped across the face by a tick-marked Lara. "Arg. Are you serious now?" Lara exclaimed to the terrified Patronus. I thought you were different from other men, but I guess Captain America is the only different guy here. The Avenger gave a nervous chuckle. Am I really? Patronus said. Whatever. Lara simply humphed as she strolled around the center of the room, observing sculptures of women in ceremonial robes with metallic rays emanating from behind them like the Sun Queens. The fire ritual where the queen chooses her successor, she said, looking around at the stone carvings. The chosen priestess enters the monastery, is given your power, and is crowned queen. Patronus and Captain waited as Lara came to a halt at the last carving, recalling Matthias' remarks to Sam back at the palace. Wait a second. Many have voluntarily given their souls for this gift. The Stormguard general's words began to play on her mind. The first and last queen now lives a half-life, a soul in a deteriorating body, says the author. Lara let out a faint gasp as she comprehended the full meaning of the rite. Vessels, it's not about transferring power, it's about transferring a soul, she said, moving her gaze over the room's statues. All these queens, they were all you, she said as she came to a halt in front of the room's largest statue. Himiko. The first and last. Fear grabbed her as she realized something else crucial. Oh, my God, and now you want Sam. As Lara spoke to the statue, Captain and Patronus exchanged glances. Well, you're not getting her. Alright, let's go, Captain said as Patronus followed him to the door. The ninja's arm was seized by the side, forcing him to gaze at Lara, who was looking guilty. You were correct all along, Patronus. Himiko is still alive, Lara stated. I'm truly sorry. For what? Patronus asked, tilting his head. At best, I said she might be alive, but that's just a theory. Lara chuckled as the hero's head tilted further, as if he wanted a trick. Come on. Let's save your friend. The trio dashed through the cave and out onto the windy outside, where they noticed a gigantic ziggurat ahead of them connected to a bridge. As they approached the opposite end of the bridge, a lightning bolt struck them, but Patronus deflected it. Futon, Kazaheki, says Futon. As the protective wind wall dissipated around the trio, the lone bolt struck a lone section of the bridge behind them. We have to get out of this storm, Captain exclaimed over the howling wind as he spotted a subterranean tunnel in the ziggurat. Through there. The trio dashed into the tunnel, climbing a few steep rugged walls to the upper floor. Lara headed to the hole in the wall where she noticed the entry in a craggy wall next to her that led to a higher floor as she climbed it, followed by Patronus and Captain. The trio's radios blared with Rhea's speech after reaching the highest floor possible. Guys, those bastards are coming in, and we did everything we could to slow them down. When the group peered down at the bridge, they saw swarms of Stormguard charging towards the ziggurat. Lara answered in kind. Get to the boat, and if we don't return. We're not leaving without you, girl. Roth exclaimed over the comlink. We're waiting for you. Patronus, I expect you to return her to me. Patronus nodded in response to the touch screen. You bet, Roth. He waved to his buddies as they made their way to the second tower, ascended it, and crossed to the other side with Lara's rope arrow until they reached another bonfire. All right, who or what is lighting these campfires? Lara rolled her eyes, and Captain chuckled a little. TTIIPMXTTIIPMXTTIIPM Vestibule Ziggurat, Chasm Ziggurat. Yamatai. In the mountains, the group engaged in another climbing session after Lara's temperature raised due to the warmth of the campfire as they mounted the freezing jagged walls, broken wooden planks, and the wind that threatened to blow them off the ziggurat. Finally, they arrived at the top of the ziggurat, where Matthias had Sam kneel before a woman dressed in a regal kimono with her hair done professionally. Oh, great queen, Matthias chanted as he extended out his arms. Through the trials, I brought you the vessel. Pour forth and return to this mortal coil. Sam was terrified as the chant continued. Pour forth and be reborn. Pour forth and awaken. The decaying body jolted as her face ripped from the quick action with a loud cry, while bright blue energy flew out of her lips and into Sam's body. Sam, Lara said as she fired an arrow. Crap, cursed Patronus as he threw his kunai. The bluish orb that served as a shield pushed both projectiles aside, forcing the trio to jump down to reach Sam and Matthias while Solari erupted from the wooden buildings. The ritual has begun. Please protect Matthias. Oh no, you don't. Patronus wrapped his fist in chakra before hurling it forward. Ekin. Lara and Captain stared as a narrow column of wind, rather than the typical version, burst out of the hero's hand and through the Solari, along with a few buildings, off the ziggurat. The surviving Solari were terrified after witnessing the wind strike. allowing the trio to attack them with everything they had as Lara shot down 5 of them and Captain hurled his shield to take down a squadron. Patronus, on the other hand, had jumped ahead of the two as he raced to Sam. Why didn't I give Sam a Hiroshin Kunai? He chastised himself for not being more cautious with Sam. His progress was halted as another gust of wind blew against his body as Captain and Lara approached. They ascended another building to reach the lofty pedestal, until Stormguard emerged from the outskirts. When a lightning bolt damaged a nearby building structure and fell on the battling Stormguard, Lara was ready to fight. "We have to hurry," Lara exclaimed as the road in front of them was obliterated, leaving just a pillar between them and the other structure on the cliff. Patronus and Captain were going to pursue her when their honed senses alerted them to attacks and they noticed the skeleton warriors, Onibai, and Yokai waving their weapons. When Lara looked around, she witnessed the heroes fighting the yokai. "Guys!" exclaimed Lara. With Tenkaichi, Patronus sliced a yokai in half. "Lara, go save Sam. We'll catch up to you," he yelled out, not turning to face her. "Go!" Lara paused, but she knew he was correct, so she turned around and approached an opening clearing surrounded by smoldering fires and shattered building debris. The archer crouched behind some trash to avoid being seen by 2 Solari who didn't seem to notice her presence. Dread gripped her as a gigantic hand clutched the edge and hauled its owner up the clearing. The Stormguard stalker approached the 2 Solari, who opened fire, but the samurai's massive armor blocked the shots. The leader threw its arm into the first Solari, killing him instantly, then grabbing the second by the throat and crushing it. The stalker growled at Lara, its big spiky kanabo resting on her right shoulder, and she gulped loudly. She moved out of the way of the stalker as it knocked the kanabo to the ground, generating a brief shockwave, before firing shots at the samurai's back with her machine gun. The stalker groaned as it reached for her back, ignoring the pain in order to bash her with the kanabo. Lara rolled out of the path once more and fired 2 grenades from her launcher right into the unarmored back. 2 blasts knocked the stalker off balance, but the samurai regained his composure as it charged towards Lara and swung the kanabo once more. She dodged once again and emptied the current mag at the stalker's back, but the cursed samurai fell to its knees this time. "Now's my chance," Lara said as she raced at the stalker and sliced his shoulder. The Stormguard captain moaned in agony, but immediately recovered and lashed out at Lara, who back-rolled out of the way as 2 Stormguard sentries rose to their perch. Lara reloaded her machine gun and shot at the smaller Stormguard before ducking out of the stalker's kanabo and counter-attacking with her pistol. She also threw 3 grenades at the samurai, who was then blasted by the powerful blasts. As the stalker, without its helmet, commanded them to attack her, more Stormguard sentries and archers came on the roof. "Shit!" exclaimed Lara as she fired her clip at the Stormguard throng while ducking her blows. She rolled out of the path and grabbed her shotgun before firing wide short bursts into the masses. "You cretins will not bring me down." When the stalker's men fell to the female intruder, it growled and charged at her again. Lara dodged the kanabo assault once more and shot 4 more rounds at his back as it fell to his knees. Lara slashed upwards through the jaw after stabbing the stalker in the head multiple times with her axe. Lara drew her axe from the Stormguard stalker's head, feeling her body slack, and took a break from the struggle. She looked up to witness a lightning bolt shatter an obstruction and pave a passage that led her directly to the shield-encased platform. The bridge behind her collapsed due to the wind as she approached, but she remained unconcerned. Lara prepared to fire her compound bow at the decomposing body, but someone else had other plans. "No," Matthias said as he fired at Lara, knocking the bow from her grasp. Lara drew her revolver and fired a shot at the rushing Solari leader, but Matthias ignored the pain by knocking the pistol out of her hand and hitting her. Lara whirled around and took out her axe, digging it into Matthias' shoulder. "This ends now." Matthias slammed her to the ground. Lara noticed his pistol and went for it, but she was met with resistance as Matthias attempted to attack her with his axe. The fight was cut short when a black blade plunged itself into Matthias' shoulder, prompting him to scream in anguish and arch his back. Lara noticed Patronus and Captain approaching Sam before grabbing Matthias' weapon and firing a bullet into his other shoulder. Matthias shouted again as the shooting continued and his sword slipped from his shoulder as he lurched backwards towards the edge. Lara stood up, retrieved her own pistol, and shot both weapons at the faltering Matthias as she neared him, until the Solari leader lost his balance and died with failing arms. "Ah!" Lara panted heavily as she peered down Matthias' tremendous descent, her pistols by her sides. She had a feeling this was what she was destined to be, but she pushed that thought aside as she hurried over to Sam, who was being blasted by the light. "What do we do now?" Patronus exclaimed. "This," Lara exclaimed as she stabbed Himiko with her torch. Himiko screamed in anguish as her body disintegrated in a golden light, and the effect was immediate. Patronus and Captain returned their gaze to Sam, who was being cradled by Lara with her head on the latter's lap. "Sam! Sam! Wake up!" As Patronus approached her, Captain inquired, "What's wrong with her?" Sam lunged at Patronus as if her hands were his body. To their surprise, her eyes were yellow, and she had an ugly sneer on her lips. "Now I'll exact my vengeance by stealing your body." "It's Himiko," Lara exclaimed, horrified. "Patronus, get the hell away from her." Patronus clenched his teeth as he fought Himiko's attempt to take his life. Himiko, on the other hand, was having difficulty taking his body, but she immediately determined that this was not the one who broke her ritual, but his descendant, as she saw very few pictures of him. The hooded person is a blonde adolescent slamming a key-infused spherical into the lightning-covered hand of another red-eyed adolescent. Another sight was of him being groomed by the same person who had destroyed her years before. Meanwhile, Naruto was also seeing Himiko's memories. Another flashback begins, Monastery Chasm Ziggurat. Yamatai in the mountains, the 1st of November 500 AD. "How dare you appear to me as yourself? I am the Sun Queen." The Sun Queen put on a brave face, but she was terrified of the intruder's immaculate martial prowess, while her elite storm guard, including her general, lay wounded and bruised on the floor. The invader stood in front of her, surrounded by her wounded storm guard. Before they looked at the crying priestess, his purple-grayish ripple eyes looked at her with a mix of disappointment and solemnity. The white-cloaked sage couldn't blame her because she was to be Himiko's vessel and would have been if he hadn't arrived in time. "You used your knowledge power to avoid death," the Sage of Six Paths said firmly, terrifying the queen. "You took the lives of those who appeared before the priestess today." The priestess cried again, avoiding looking at her former queen. "They offered their lives to me," Himiko argued, summoning lightning to her palms and blasting it at the intruder, "and neither you nor anyone else will dare to defy me." The Sage of Six Paths, to her surprise, lifted his right palm to grab the lightning before crushing it. "Fortunately, I'm here," the unidentified Otsutsuki member said, flashing a series of hand gestures before slamming his right fist on the ground, "and I will administer your punishment." The Sun Queen exclaimed as kanji spread from his hands and latched onto her body. What exactly are you doing?" "If you wanted to live forever, you will," replied the Sage of Six Paths. "Fuinjutsu, Godai Kekai," says the narrator. The Stormguard general extended his hand. "My queen," he said, calling out to his screaming queen. Himiko's body flashed brightly as the seals quickly vanished from view. Her head dropped down as her general reached out for her before turning his gaze to the one who had ruined everything. "Damn. You." The sage sighed and made a single hand sign. "Now you'll never know of my existence." His eyes shone with power as the ground trembled from the technique he used to destroy the entire island. The Sage of the Six Paths approached the priestess. "You are safe now." When the priestess hugged him in thanks, the father of all ninja grunted lightly. Thank you," the priestess said as the sage carried her out of the palace in his arms. "Won't they come after either me or you?" Hagoromo made a shaky motion with his head. "With the exception of Himiko, almost all of the Stormguard's memories have been altered by the genjutsu I just placed," he said of Himiko. "She'll remember me, but as for you, you killed yourself after discovering the ritual's true nature." "Ooh. Well, I guess that's better than being a doll," mused the priestess before speaking aloud. "However, because the ritual was interrupted, you effectively cursed her and the Stormguard. Plus, my genjutsu and fuinjutsu will keep them busy for a long time," Hagoromo asserted firmly. "However, I have a feeling someone in my family will finish things here." The priestess cocked her chin. "Who exactly do you mean?" "I'm just rambling. Are you ready to return to Nihon, Japan?" The priestess nodded. "Let's go." The sage and his traveler fled the deserted island, which was soon swamped by wild storms, through a small portal generated by the former's yin-yang chakra. Flashback concludes. "Let me in." Patronus clenched his teeth. "Fat chance," he yelled as the picture of Kurama flashed before Himiko's eyes as he probed his thoughts. "Get out of his mind," said Kurama before roaring loudly with blared fangs. Himiko shrieked as the light separated her and Patronus from each other. "What the hell was that? That wasn't human." "Screw you." Patronus made a different hand sign than his master. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Kitsune no Kekai, says Uzumaki Fuinjutsu. Lara and Captain took a step back in surprise as a one-tailed wind kitsune sprang from Patronus's fingers and surged through Sam's body. Himiko's spirit was yanked out of Sam as she was gripped tightly by the fox's tail, much to their surprise. No, no, Himiko screamed defiantly as she sought to release herself. Patronus approached the ailing Sun Queen. "I'm sorry that my ancestor caused you pain, but you brought it on yourself," he said to Himiko, much to her chagrin. "Are you going to seal me like your ancestor?" exclaimed Himiko. "Do that. But remember, I'll escape this island and bring the world to its knees." Patronus looked solemnly at her, as Lara and Captain America recognized something about Himiko's energy. It was starting to get physical. She was being resurrected. Patronus murmured gently, "So, you haven't noticed yet? You don't feel the wind?" Himiko's eyes widened progressively every second as she felt the wind brush across her face. She felt something for the first time in a long time. Her conquest strategy will now be 10 times more effective. Or it would have been had it not been for the golden narrow blade piercing her throat. The dying Himiko was freed by the wind fox's tail before it vanished into the air as Patronus gently lowered her body to the earth. As Himiko clutched his hand, he drew out his left hidden blade from her throat, and he understood what it meant. She didn't want to be alone herself. I just gag wanted to live cough more, Himiko sobbed. Patronus replied softly, "Death comes for us all when the time is right. If one attempts to prolong life rather than accept death, fear grows and the consequences worsen." "The first and last Sun Queen laughed heartily. Says the one who has become immortal." Patronus muttered under his breath, "I never wanted it." She witnessed him gaining Poseidon's power. It's funny how those who want immortality die, while those who don't become one. Himiko peered behind the hood, and she swears she saw a smidgen of dual blue within. She coughed again as blood filled her throat. "It's funny, but it just goes to show. You're a better human being. Worthy," she exhaled softly. "Arigato, thank you." Himiko breathed her last breath and left this world. Patronus closed her eyelids and said in Italian, "Requiescat in pace, rest in peace." The Sun Queen's body disintegrated soon after she was killed and no longer in communication with the fox. Because of the yin-yang discharge, Naruto's new original Uzumaki Fuinjutsu allows him to contact a spirit and give them a corporeal body. Unless someone kills the spirit with a particular metal or power, the spirit will remain alive as long as the fox makes physical touch. The Hidden Blade's adamantine metal met that criteria. He developed this technique relatively recently, and it is extremely sensitive due to the complex regulation of the yin and yang chakras. "It's over. It's finally over," Lara exclaimed with relief as Sam laughed loudly. Patronus smirked at the girls as he flicked the blood from his hidden blade before retracting it into his bracer. "Yeah, it's all over." "Thank goodness," Captain replied, standing alongside Patronus. Despite the numerous cuts and dusty patches on his suit, he looked decent. "I take it you didn't want S.H.I.E.L.D. to know more about you." Patronus firmly stated, "The less they know, the better." He looked at the Avenger. "And I trust you'll keep it a secret." Captain America respectfully saluted the rookie hero, "Till my dying day." "Why, you don't have to be so serious about it," Patronus murmured, a perspiration drop on his brow. "Most people would not ignore a hero killing people," Captain thought as Patronus narrowed his eyes. "However, I think that's exactly what I'm looking for." The ninja gave him a look. "What exactly do you mean by that?" TTIIPMX Shipwreck Beach, Survivors Beach. "Please reconsider, Patronus." "Nope." The Endurance crew watched the display as Patronus stood on the opposite side of the boat with Captain America, trying to persuade him of his proposition. According to what they heard, the Avenger had offered the rookie hero the position of first member of a new team he was forming with other heroes. Patronus had turned down the offer, much to the amazement of everyone, even Captain America. "Very well, but the offer remains, Patronus." Patronus offered a thumbs up before seeing something odd about the boat. "You did fight off the Stormguard, right?" Alex flexed his biceps as he raised his arm. "Of course, we took some of them out because they were no match for us. But they were more than a match for the gas tank." Was the crew's collective response. Patronus stepped over to demonstrate the engine spilling oil due to a stray arrow striking one of the gas lines. No, Reyes said in surprise as the boat slowed and came to a stop near the shore. "No." Patronus said with a pop, yep. While Roth and Reyes worked to repair the aquatic vehicle, they reluctantly disembarked from the boat. Lara and Sam sat next to each other while Jonah, Alex, and Grimm scoured the perimeter of the beach for Solari or Stormguard. Patronus, said the hero, looking to his side and seeing Captain America. Are you sure that ship is the USS America? He said, nodding as the Avengers sighed with relief. A lot of people back home will be relieved to see their loved ones again. Patronus had led Captain America to the cavern where the lost American cruiser was stuck before they departed for the beach and instructed him that Chield's top concern should be the slain sailors before the island's structures and tombs. The sound of something falling against a metal component broke their much-needed tranquility. The armed individuals rose to their feet, their weapons aimed at the source of the commotion. Patronus spun around as he sensed two distinct energies emanating from behind a shattered shelter. To everyone's dismay, he moved towards it and directly into their line of fire. Patronus, move out of the way. Ignoring the warning, the camouflaged ninja hunkered at the shelter. It's all right. You can come out, he whispered softly. From behind the shelter, a coo-like sound could be heard. It's fine. No one here will hurt you, I promise. Patronus extended his right hand as a peace offering. It wasn't long until the Endurance crew witnessed something magnificent. As opposed to the previously mentioned horrible animals, such as the various sorts of yokai. The first creature was a little fox with snow-white fur, emerald eyes, and a red bib around its neck. But the second thing had their whole attention. It had pale green skin, little white eyes, and a charming smile on its face as it wore a small bib around its neck, a stick in its left hand, and an immense bowl on its head. Are you a Kodama? Patronus said softly, eliciting a large nod from the small creature. Where is your shrine, and where are your friends? Lara crouched close to Patronus as the Kodama hid behind the fox who hissed at her. It's okay, Lara said, raising her hands to signify she didn't mean any harm. I won't hurt you either. I'm friends with him, she said, pointing to Patronus, who nodded at the animals. Everyone except Reyes approached the creatures, who were initially hesitant and afraid by their presence but soon embraced them. TTIIPMX. As it turned out, the Kodama is a Japanese tree ghost that inhabits in trees, similar to the dryads in Greek mythology. They also resided in shrines devoted to them, according to Patronus' understanding. The Kodama would provide wealth and luck to those who were kind to them in their trees, but would curse those who were not. After Sam and the equally ecstatic Jonah, Alex, and Grimm took turns caring for the critters, the Kodama and the fox raced to the one with whom they felt the safest, as the former immediately climbed to his head and the latter perched on his lap. The vulpine beast, on the other hand, gave him the most cause for concern, in a nice manner. Great one? Patronus blinked a few times as he searched for the voice, only to have the Kodama pat his head. Can you hear me? Patronus gave a tiny nod, much to the satisfaction of the Kodama and fox. Yay. I'm so happy. I knew you were different from the other humans here, I just knew it, exclaimed the Kodama, waving its stick like a child. Foxy here didn't believe me, but I knew it. Is that really his name? Patronus inquired via the link. The fox shook his head and scowled at the Kodama. What's his deal? He flinched as the fox tried to attack him, but the pelt of the Nemean lion shielded his torso from the fangs. Not a he, Patronus inquired gently, getting down to business. How long have you two been on this island? From there, the Kodama described its history on the island. It told Naruto about how the island was thriving, with humans and yokai coexisting peacefully. That all changed when the Sun Queen conquered the island and ruled over its inhabitants, brainwashing them to despise the yokai and destroying all temples and residences dedicated to them. Except for the Kodama, the yokai had evolved into their current forms after years of malevolence by humans. Before Himiko's reign, there were thousands of Kodama roaming the island, but after decades of being hunted and eaten by yokai and humans alike, there was only one left. That was the first time the last Kodama encountered the fox, who became its best companion and guardian over the next 300 years. The fox was on board in a takebune, a Japanese coastal naval warship employed in the 16th and 17th centuries that was sunk by Himiko's storms. They met and have been looking out for one another ever since. What exactly is that? Everyone's thoughts were interrupted when Sam directed their gaze to the horizon, where they noticed an outline. A ship's outline, ship. Roth said with fervor as everyone but the captain and Patronus waved their arms to attract the ship's sailors' attention. The ship had come to a halt 30 yards from the island's shoreline, forcing them to swim towards the brig-style ship. As soon as they boarded, the crew searched the colonial-era ship for the captain or anyone else, but they couldn't find them, which led a couple of them to one conclusion. "This ship is haunted," exclaimed Jonah, Alex, Sam, and Grim. Patronus shrugged his shoulders and peered about the brig-type vessel, as did everyone else, but their purpose was to ensure that the ship was empty. The ninja smiled within his hood as he peered up at the central mast on the main deck, seeing something intriguing and wanting a better look. He became aware of the assassin-shaped pulley system and used it to pull himself to the crow's nest. Naruto chuckled at the object that had piqued his interest. It was a black flag with an orange assassin insignia and a red Uzumaki clan symbol in the center. The flag, or Jolly Roger as it was technically known during his time here, was most likely fashioned by his wives. He could only envision Kuroka and Medusa debating about the design, while Seiko and Ria argued about the colors. This increased his eagerness to meet his family once the group arrived safely on Japan's mainland. Patronus. The ninja looked down and saw Lara waving him down before giving in to her request. "Wait, wait, wait," Lara said as Patronus plummeted from the crow's nest and landed in front of her, showing no signs of discomfort. "Seriously, who are you?" Patronus shrugged his shoulders, smirking beneath his hood. "Who knows?" says the author. "Anyone know how to steer this ship?" Alex inquired, as everyone shook their heads. "I was afraid of that." "Actually, I do," Patronus remarked, grabbing everyone's attention with a raised hand. "My grandfather was a ship enthusiast who taught me how to sail all kinds of ships." "Including an 18th century brig?" Lara wondered. The hooded ninja gave a nod. "You never cease to amaze me." Patronus acquired all knowledge of seafaring and the mechanics of every ship class in human history from his symbolic grandpa, Poseidon, due in part to his godly might dwelling within him. This includes limited telekinetic control over the ship. Both the Avenger and the disguised shinobi noticed the water begin to swirl near the ship as they headed to the helm on the upper quarterdeck, alerting their honed senses to the danger. "Everyone, get ready." The Endurance crew remained near the main mast and seized it as Patronus took the helm. Patronus's covert use of his wind style as he directed the ship away from the whirling area caused the Aquila to sail forward quite quickly. However, they were unable to travel far enough since the ocean behind them surged to impassable heights as the ship's passengers witnessed a new creature that threatened to harm them. The fox hissed at the thing, and the Kodama's grasp on his skull tightened as Patronus examined it intently. The churning sea held vast debris of wooden ships from previous generations, while the massive monster resembled a bald monk with a rounded head and two large luminous stones that worked as its eyes. "The Umabozu," Patronus murmured before guiding the ship away and utilizing the wind to propel it further. The tales about the Umabozu, or sea monk in English, were rather unsettling for the ninja because it was effectively a supersized version of the shark from Jaws, which also made him afraid of the ocean for a while. It was a yokai who attacked ships at night, and tradition has it that sailors used a bottomless barrel to save their lives to avoid a ship sinking into the ocean. Unfortunately for them, they no longer have a bottomless well. The Umabozu rapidly caught up with the speedy ship and summoned a water tentacle to smash the crew, but Patronus immediately moved the helm to starboard as the Aquila made a tight turn. Large waves erupted from the crushed tentacle, heading straight for the broadsided ship. Patronus channeled chakra once more after realizing they wouldn't make it with turns. Futon, Kazaheki, a massive version of the wind technique whirled around the ship, cutting a sphere-sized hole through the waves. Naruto widened his eyes as the technique dispersed before steering Aquila hard to port and telekinetically having the full sails for extra speed. When a huge yellow beam almost missed them, the captain was going to inquire why they were sailing with full sails. "What's the game plan, Patronus?" When Sam pointed out something else in the ocean, the hooded ninja decided to construct a clone and confront the yokai himself. "Over there, don't tell me it's another one," Lara's best pal exclaimed, terrified. A horse-headed creature with arachnid-like claws and crustacean armor bursts from the sea surface and tackles the Umabozu back away from the Aquila. After Patronus sailed to a safe distance, the passengers and hidden captain of the assassin flagship witnessed the conflict between the similar-sized giants. "What is that thing?" Alex inquired as he wiped the seawater from his glasses. "Looks like they're fighting over territory," Roth surmised as the Umabozu whipped a tentacle at the opposite adversary, who didn't appear to be disturbed by its bulky appearance. Grim hummed to himself, but it was audible to everyone. "Grim? Do you know that creature?" I've heard of its appearance from one of my grandfather's old stories, Grimm said as the horse creature opened its maw and sprayed a water jet at the Umabozu, who didn't appear to be hurt but was forced back by the force of the strike. I think that's a hippocampus. Lara looked at him, stunned. Hippocampus? As in Poseidon's creatures that he created and pulls his chariot. I thought they were supposed to be beautiful. Looks can be deceiving, girl, Roth replied, his gaze fixed on the two beasts. I'm wondering if it's on our side? Reyes rolled his eyes. You've got to be kidding, she said coldly as Patronus rolled his eyes at her. Sway neighed loudly as she re-attacked the Umabozu. As energy charged inside the yokai's eyes, they fused into one enormous luminous eye, alerting both Sway and her lord. Despite its vast size, the hippocampus quickly spun around as its long sharp-scaled tail sliced through the eye and to the other side. The Umabozu lost shape as the water and shipwreck debris fell back into the ocean, while Sway broke the stone in its tail into pieces with her arachnid-like appendages before softly wading across the waters towards the Aquila, much to the surprise of the passengers. We've got to leave. Patronus, steer this thing, Reyes said, but he ignored her. Patronus, right now. Patronus waited until Sway's head was at his height before speaking, surprising everyone. Good job, Sway. I'm proud of you. The hippocampus smiled as water drops dropped on everyone, much to Naruto's delight. I missed you too. Come down here and nuzzle me. Lara and her pals watched as the gigantic beast shrank to the size of a puppy, slithered around his body, and nuzzled against his hooded head. "Who are you?" exclaimed everyone, even Captain. Patronus chuckled as he took the helm and directed his ship north. Wouldn't you like to know? As everyone sought to get answers from the cloaked hero, Lara moved to the stern and watched the island shrink with each nautical distance until it vanished. She came across creatures and historical individuals that were supposed to be myths and stories, only to be revealed to be true right in front of her eyes. And at the helm was the one who had played a role in opening her eyes to the strange world. She could hope that he would be there for her as she intends to investigate her father's various views about the world's stories. It wasn't long before one of the survivors observed something far ahead in the ship's bow. "Guys, look, we're saved," Sam said joyfully as her friends applauded loudly as the jet-like aerial vehicle neared the ship at breakneck speed. Patronus and Captain America recognized the Quinjet as it circled them before cruising alongside the ship like an escort. But why was there a sinking feeling in Naruto's stomach? TTIIPMXTTIIPMXTTIIPM, after 8 hours, Naval Base Osaka. Honshu, Japan, Osaka. I knew it, 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 I knew it. A seething Naruto resisted the impulse to destroy the base with a Rasengan and its stronger wind variant, but that didn't stop him from being upset about his current situation, and his renters were in the same boat. As soon as the survivors and himself docked in Osaka's ports, he was apprehended by SHIELD agents. His offense, interfering with an ongoing SHIELD mission. Lara was emphatic and upset about the charge, just like her companions, but none of them came close to Captain America's rage, who requested to speak with Fury. As a result, Fury is the organization's leader. It's useful to know who to punch once he's escaped. Naruto understood after calming down that this was an opportunity to learn more about the organization and its personnel. So he waited on the main deck of his ship, his hidden eyes scanning the pier as agents leveled their sidearms at him. People are watching me from the other side. Interesting, Patronus reflected as he found himself perfectly at ease despite his previous displeasure. He then remembered that his passengers were safe. To keep SHIELD at bay, the Kodama, the Fox, and Sway hid beneath the seals of his robes, because he cleverly placed concealed tags that constantly send off wind nature chakra a millimeter off the ship. His ship, the Aquila, was protected from any potential eavesdropping equipment. His weapons remained on his person, and when the agents attempted to confiscate them, Patronus gave them a severe reminder not to touch them. 30 agents missed the memo. As Lara and her friends stared at Captain America, he returned to the ship. "Patronus, I am so sorry. I should have seen this coming, especially from Fury," he apologized fiercely, but his earlier rage remained. Patronus realized, much to the surprise of the crew, "He used you to get to me." The Avenger gave a nod. "He knew I would recruit you to help the survivors and used that as a cover to arrest you on a false charge." "For some reason, I suddenly feel honored," Patronus replied casually. "Surprise, Captain. I can tell you had no part in this, and I believe you." "This isn't fair. You were trying to help us," Sam exclaimed as her friends agreed. Lara approached Patronus and Captain America. "We'll back you up, Patronus. You saved our lives." Captain and the rookie hero laughed together. "Most likely, they'll separate you all for your debriefing, and Fury will try to take your statement of everything that's happened since you arrived on the island," Fury said authoritatively. Patronus. Patronus stated, "You must be Fury. I assumed you'd be taller or more something." "Captain, please." Fury asked to be alone. Captain America moved, but not outside, as he stood behind Patronus with his arms crossed. "You want the full story? You need to debrief both of us." "All of us," Lara stated emphatically as she and her pals surrounded Patronus. Seeing that they would not move and recognizing that taking them off the ship for separate debriefing would endanger Patronus operatives. "Very well," Fury sighed, opening his file with a blank sheet of paper. "Let's get started." Naruto began the longest period of waiting and debriefing he had ever experienced. TTIIPMXTTIIPMXTTIIPM, after 3 hours, and we're done, Fury concluded after wrapping up his debriefing with the rookie hero. Lara and the others ended their debriefings for different agents in several spots around the main deck. While Captain America stayed with Patronus, they were being led off the ship. Patronus stated, "I take it you want something else." Telepath. A keen observer. Straight to the point. "Very well," Fury said as he closed the dossier and gazed coldly at the hooded assassin. "Where were you on the night of April 28th? "Sorry," Patronus asked, perplexed. "I'm wondering where you were on the night of April 28th. "I honestly don't know what you're talking about," Patronus acknowledged honestly. He doesn't recall everything that happened in this dimension unless it was extremely important, such as his children's birthdays and his wives' anniversaries. "I'm a little disoriented here." Fury was going to prod Fury for further information when the spacecraft abruptly began to glow light blue, shocking both him and Captain America. Patronus quickly seized the two of them and threw them off his ship as the light began to consume both the ship and him. "Patronus." The ninja called back, seeing Lara trying to approach him but being stopped by SHIELD operatives. "Patronus, get off the ship," Lara yelled at her companion. The ninja was about to speak when he and the ship vanished in a flash of bluish light. As Lara began to curse the SHIELD director, Fury, Captain, the Endurance survivors, and agents stared at the empty space of the missing Aquila. Damn you, Fury." Fury ignored Croft's words, fuming silently at the loss of the novice hero and knowing that he was unlikely to receive another chance. Captain scowled at the one-eyed guy before leading the survivors away from the agents and back to the base. He could only hope Patronus was still alive and forgave him for what had transpired, despite the fact that the rookie hero had already informed him otherwise. Lara was crushed by the loss of the only person who believed in her except Roth and Sam. She had hoped to get to know him better after they were off the island, but it now appeared that she would never get the chance. Despite this, she had a hunch she'd see him again. TTIIPMXTTIIPMXTTIIPM Kyoto, Fushimi-ku Honshu, Kyoto Prefecture, Japan. Patronus blinked many times when he found himself in front of a shrine at the base of a mountain with fox statues on both sides. He looked about and found that no one seemed to notice his presence, which made him anxious. "Am I dead?" Patronus asked, perspiration droplets pouring down his brow. His performance was cut short as he felt his robes flutter slightly before the white fox escaped and ran up the Vermilion Torii trail. "Follow him, my lord," he exclaimed. Ignoring the "lord" aspect, Naruto followed the fox to the shrine's Hayden, the hall of worship on Shinto shrine architecture. Patronus noticed the fox's head move to the well next to him and knew right away what it intended him to do first. Patronus followed the fox to the Hoden, the shrine's main sanctuary and the most sacred edifice of a Shinto shrine, and followed the obligatory ritual for entering a shrine. According to what he remembers Seiko saying about the Shinto religion, the Hoden is normally off-limits to the public. So, why was he granted an exception? And where's the priest? The fox scowled at him, and Patronus paused. "Do you mean the Kanushi, Shinto priest, or the Miko, shrine maiden?" As the Kanushi of the temple appeared, the white fox turned its head and wagged its tail. As the elderly man slowly moved to the center of the room, he wore a white karajinu and an eboshi on his head. "Good morning, young man." Hello," Patronus said, bowing slightly to show respect to both the shrine and Kanushi, who was kneeling to pray. "Please forgive me if I'm trespassing here. This fox brought me here." He paused, pointing his finger at the beast in front of him. "If you want me to No, no, young man. Not at all, the priest reassured the hooded ninja with a delicate hand gesture. After all, I did bring you here. He turned back to see a surprised Patronus, and the fox's tail wagged even more. Ah, come on over here, you. Khan, the fox ran up to Kanushi and leapt into his arms, rubbing its head on his chest. I've missed you so much, child. Patronus looked at the two, startled but suspicious. Your brothers and sisters are anxious to see you. Is he talking about me or the fox? Patronus wondered, surrounded by a swarm of white foxes staring at him. Why do I feel like I'm being set up? Get him. The ninja scarcely screamed as the foxes charged at him, but their movements shocked him. They nuzzled against him and licked him all over, tickling the ninja in the process. Knock it off. Knock it off, Patronus begged, giggling. It took some time before the Kanushi ended the fight with a wave of his hand. As Patronus rose up, the white foxes backed away, heads lowered. I thank you, young man, for bringing one of my children home, and don't worry about your ship. It's safe and sound in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and you'll be sent there once our conversation is finished. I'm sorry, your children? Patronus stammered as the fox he had rescued yipped at him. Then he remembered the fox statues at the shrine gates, and the wheels in his head started turning. Where are we exactly? The elderly man laughed at the sluggish ninja. Right now, we're at the Fushimi Inari Taisha in Kyoto. Fushimi Inari Taisha? Kyoto. Patronus continued, his thoughts racing. His children? White foxes. The oldest dedicated to one of the... He hesitated as he took a step back, his widened eyes staring at the gentle smirking man. These foxes are kitsune, and they in this shrine are dedicated to the kami of this country, the kami of foxes, fertility, rice, tea, and sake, of agriculture and industry, of general prosperity and worldly success. They seem to like you a lot, Lara replied cheerfully. Patronus laughed as he nuzzled the fox's head and the kodama fiddled with his hood. I just have that effect on animals, even folklore animals, he said, motioning to the figure on his head. There was also the fact that after learning senjutsu in sage mode, he became one with nature. His mastery of the art had taught him to respect nature to the fullest degree, and animals such as the Raicho the thunderbird, Sway the hippocampus, and now the kodama and the white fox can sense that profound respect. The man nodded as his attire began to shift from eboshi to a bright red yukata. He had white hair and wrinkled skin, but he appeared to be in his prime because a black whip was attached to his robe. Yuri Nari Okami. Patronus muttered in awe. The kodama on his head merely waved to the fox god, as a child might to a stranger. Inari smiled gratefully and nodded. I'm touched you know my titles, and I admit it's a mouthful. He said this as Patronus shrugged awkwardly. Let us now discuss. Descendant of the Six Paths Sage. Patronus backed up to avoid a rapid swipe from Inari's whip. What was that for? Our discussion. Inari responded simply by snapping his fingers. His kitsune messengers vanished in a white mist, leaving him and Patronus behind. TTIIPMX Mount Inari's summit. Patronus put some distance between himself and the kami after they appeared at the top of the mountain by placing the kodama near a tree. Here you have it. I can't fight if I'm also defending you, okay. The ninja scratched the tree spirit's head amusingly as the kitsune it had befriended approached him. You'll keep him safe, right? The kitsune yipped happily before the kodama jumped on its back and rushed back to her brethren who were standing far away from the upcoming battleground. Patronus turned around with a solemn expression on his face and popped his knuckles. I'm wondering what my master did to you that you want to fight me. You'll find it. If you live. I like that bet. The two combatants exchanged long stares as the icy wind swept against their clothing before disappearing with incredible speed. They reappeared in the midst of the mountain top as Inari summoned a black sickle in his opposing hand and swung it at Patronus, who evaded the strike. As he channeled his chakra into the familiar sphere in his palm, the ninja smirked. Rasengan. A large amount of rock and rubble flooded the entire region, concealing the kitsune and kodama audience, as a loud explosion rocked the mountain peak. For the first time on Japanese land, a mortal versus a god war had begun. To be continued.
That's the end for this podcast. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope it did you enjoy the particular story, and if it did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.